Cleveland Browns now we're at the bottom of the AFC North. Cleveland Browns are next. By the way, I predicted yesterday that not predicted, but there was a bunch of stories about how Deshaun Watson will never play again. That's such a load of manure. He's like he will be on another roster in March of 2026, right?
I thought that was weird too. Like I don't know. I mean,
you mean to tell me that like no other GM is gonna be like, I can fix this guy? By the way, I mean that's neither here nor there. But I found that to be interesting. But
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would have to think that like someone's going to look at like, especially if they cut him after this year, and it's like you can have him for the minimum. Like, why wouldn't you do that? You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Cleveland is in an interesting spot right now. Theoretically, Kenny Pickett is their starting quarterback, which is not what you want. I would imagine that Kirk Cousins comes into play here, even though they did visit with Shedeur Sanders, and we're pretty sure that Cam Ward is going number 1 overall to the Titans. That leaves to me, because you have 2 ultra premium players in Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter at the top of the draft, maybe in some ways you kind of throw need out the window. That said, I mean, we are discussing team needs here, and Abdul Carter, I guess, is a need because it's going to make Myles Garrett better, right?
Yep.
And you don't really have anything over on the left side, and so you hope that maybe you bring someone in here and you make the final years of the Myles Garrett era a little bit more comfortable. But nobody's really talking about how freaked out we should probably be about this offensive line. Wyatt Teller's 30.
Bitonio's what, 32, right?
The center's 30. The Bitonio's 34. 34. He's turning 34. And then Jack Conklin is going to turn 31 during the season. At this point, left tackle is still probably a little bit of a question mark as well.
Yeah.
You lost Bill Callahan the year before. And
that's the big one to me.
It's like, huge.
That's the big one. Cause I think that one is like, okay, so they bring in the old Rice head coach, Kevin Stefanski does, to try to shore that up. And they really missed Bill Callahan last year to the point where Mike Vrabel was helping with the offensive line at the end of the year. And, so much of this is like developing guys. Like they've got, they spent draft picks on Zach Zinter out of Michigan, Luke Whippler out of Ohio State. They signed Tevin Jenkins. Like they have some guys that should, like on paper, have some promise and that should be usable, that are younger. And now, like, a lot of this is going to come down to, okay, like, how do you develop those guys? Because you are older on the line and you can't maybe count on 17 games apiece for each of the guys. And a lot's going to, a lot of it's going to be like what happens with DeJuan Jones at left tackle,
Right.
So, unfortunately for them, like the ideal scenario for them would have been to, like, Joe Alt is available with the 2nd overall pick, what I mean? Like, and then you wind up just taking Joe Alt there. Unfortunately for them, I don't think there's an offensive lineman that is seen as being worthy of being in the Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter category. So they're going to take one of those two. And then I think they'll double back to the offensive line on day 2. And I still can't get the idea of an April 25th trade for Kirk Cousins out of my head.
I think that's a lock at this point, don't you?
Yeah, Cousins doesn't want to be traded. Now, this is interesting. He wanted to be cut before the first deadline in this whole thing, which was March 15th, which when he's on the roster past then, $10 million for 2026 vest is fully guaranteed. The next one is the draft. And I know he's told teams he won't waive his no trade clause until after the first round because he doesn't want to get panicked again. I think that once you get past the first round and you take Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, if you're Andrew Berry, you pick up the phone, you call Terry Fontenot in Atlanta, and you ask him what's going to take to get it done. And maybe because you've got the 2 third-round picks, the 4th round pick becomes the chip that you're playing with, 104 overall.
Yeah.
Because that's what Matt Ryan went for at the end of his career, so I think that's sort of like a fair comp.
Yeah. And I don't have any doubt that Cleveland will take a swing at the quarterback position somewhere in this draft. Historically, I think under the DePodesta era, when they've needed to, they've at least poked at the position if they didn't do it in the first round. And so, I mean, whether that was Deshaun Kaiser once upon a time, I don't know if anyone remembers
I
that
know
one.
you knew Deshaun Kaiser well. Yeah.
I'm a big Deshaun Kaiser guy. So I could see them maybe experimenting with someone on the back end, and you kind of put him in Kevin Stefanski's hip pocket, and you hope that maybe after Kirk Cousins is done, he can be a bridge starter for you. It's a pipe dream, but I have said time and time again, I think this class is going to have like two weird guys that don't get picked in the first round that are quarterbacks that end up starting in this league for like 8 years.
Yep. Yeah,
I
I
just,
agree.
I that's kind of how I feel about it. All right, Cincinnati Bengals next, 9-8 last year. They just signed their wide receivers to long-term contracts. The Trey Hendrickson thing is still outstanding. So, would you put edge at the central? I guess even if you do get that done, I mean, Trey Hendrickson, I mean, this is something we aren't kind of talking about enough. Trey Hendrickson is fantastic, has gotten better every year in the NFL. His
But
problem,
he's 31.
he's 31. That's one of his problems. His other problem was he came up in free agency after only having had one really good season with the Saints. So he was a 1-year wonder. And that was that COVID class. And if you remember about that COVID class, that again, no one really talks about, is the fact that all these edge guys went for nothing. You got, oh my goodness, who am I thinking about? Well, you had the edge from the Bengals that went to the Jets.
Carl Lawson.
Carl Lawson, that was like 15 million. The Patriots signed
From
Matt Judon
the
again
Ravens.
for like 15 million and trade. Like they all went in this like area. And I remember talking to a few GMs and saying that was the theft of the century at the time when the edge market was going to climb up with, I think it might have been before the Bosa deal got it up to like 25
It
million.
was 21. Yeah, so it was 21 offseason. So it would have been, well, no, I think Bosa was the summer of 20. So
Bosa was the
Bosa
summer
had
of
already
20.
gotten done, but the cap went down because of COVID.
Right.
And so like there were fewer teams that had money to spend.
Mm-hmm.
And so teams that actually did have money to spend could swoop in and say, okay, like we're willing to pay because all these other teams are hard up against the cap. So it was like one of those off seasons where supply outweighed demand. Like there were far fewer suitors than there were good players available, which allowed some of those teams to clean up. The Bengals, I want to say, was that the off season? I think they maybe signed Trey Waynes that off season too.
Yes.
That might be right. So like they had signed a couple guys. Maybe that was a Von Bell. Maybe that was the Von Bell year too. I can't remember, but yeah, the Bengals had gotten a bunch of guys, and I think it's interesting because like you mentioned the three edge rushers there, Lawson, Hendrickson, and Judon. Those contracts became problems later on. Like Judon,
Absolutely.
like the Judon and Hendrickson contracts both became problems, and obviously Lawson never really got it back after tearing his Achilles. So yeah, I mean, like I think edge rusher definitely, would be one you would look at here. I mean, even if you are able to get something done with Hendrickson, because Miles Murphy's been a pretty big bust.
Right.
But I think just defense in general, you know what I mean? Like you've spent so much on offense, and now I think you kind of go to if you're leaning in this much, and it's not just those three guys, Burrow and Chase and Higgins. It's also, you're spending a lot on your offensive line. You re-sign Mike Gesicki. So like now you're kind of going to that model of the Colts from the Bill Polian era. You know what I mean? Like when they were paying Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne and Dallas Clark and Tariq Glenn and Jeff Saturday and Edgerrin James. And like, you're sort of in this spot now where you almost have to be young on defense,
You do. And a lot of holes. I mean, holes at safety, holes at interior defensive line, holes at linebacker, holes at cornerback. If you want to say that the Bengals are, maybe you don't go edge just because, maybe the coaching staff goes to Miles Murphy and is like, listen, dude, it's put up or shut up time this year, and we have so many needs, and we're not going to take an edge, or the class doesn't meet where we're picking, whatever it is, and you kind of give him that ultimatum, and you hope that he really grows this season. It's possible. He was talented in college, but I think too the other thing that I think we need to be bringing up more is that Ted Karras is your best offensive lineman, and he's 32 and he plays center. And at some point, that whole thing's got to get redone.
At some point, like the good news is though, like I think their issues are more on the interior. Like I think they're okay with Orlando Brown and Marius Mims at tackle. Their issues are on the inside, and I'm not saying you want to count on a 5th-round pick, but generally you can find guards and centers
Sure.
later in the draft.
Yeah.
So, like, I think early on, like, if I'm them, like, first 2 days, and I'm looking at their picks right now, I mean, they've got their slotted picks in the first 6 rounds. You spend 17, 49, and 81 on defense, and then maybe start to think on day 3 about the offensive line.
Pittsburgh Steelers are next on our list, and
this sort of depends, doesn't it?
I mean, it depends on a lot of things. Like, what was it, like 12 hours before we taped this? TJ Watt just posted a cryptic photo of himself, walking off the field, which I'm guessing is a ploy to just get a little bit more
just
cash
means
before the season starts.
Probably just means like negotiations are at a standstill.
Yeah, it's hey, I'm going to leave if you don't take care of this. And so I wouldn't say that that's an immediate need, although that team has attacked that position year in and year out, and it's something that Mike Tomlin believes in. If I had to say off the top of my head, I mean, are we assuming that Aaron Rodgers is here? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's tough to make any assumption. I wouldn't rule out retirement completely.
He didn't show up at the McAfee.
Could he pull a Favre and retire and then unretire if the Vikings need him in August? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the timing is going to be on this. I do think, if you ask me what I think he's going to wind up playing for the Steelers. And the Steelers have left the light on for him for so long. And I do think like it probably does change your approach, right? Like where if you're them, you're probably looking at it and you're saying, all right, we want somebody who's going to help us in 2025 with our first couple picks. Because we are all in for this year. And the thing about it is a lot of their team is built that way anyway.
Right.
Like that's the thing is like TJ Watt's going to be 31. Minka Fitzpatrick's going to be 29. Cam Ward is at the back end of his career. DK Metcalf's on his 3rd contract. So like I look at it like, I mean, they've got the 21st pick. They've got the 83rd pick. Their 2nd rounder that went to Seattle for DK. I look at it like, if you're going to get Rodgers, you probably want guys who can help you right now. And that actually might mean adding guys to the defense.
I think so too.
They've done a sneaky good job the last couple of years of getting themselves back where they need to be from an offensive line standpoint.
I agree with that.
If they hit like Zach Frazier might wind up being the best center in the league. Mason McCormick was really good as a rookie.
Yep.
They bring Suamaloau. Is that how you pronounce it? Isaac from Philly. And then Broderick Jones and Troy Fatanu, if Fatanu hits, they're good on the offensive line. So I look at it like maybe the best thing for them right now to win right now is to add to their defense.
I mean, you've poured in the resources on the offensive line. I think that there's still, and again, too, there's room for growth here. So if Joey Porter gets better, great, right?
Yep.
If someone like, Beanie Bishop had to play a lot of snaps for them last year. If he's a guy that comes around and starts playing well, great. TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, and Alex Highsmith are like 3 of the best players at their positions in the NFL. Yep. But can you supplement that somehow?
Peyton Wilson's got a chance to be really good. Was really good as a rookie. So I'm with you. Like that's why this is so perfect for Rodgers.
I know.
It's because it's just like everything is like you have guys like, and again, this is like the subtle difference between like what the Jets were, what the Giants were this year when they were going after him, and what the Steelers are. Like the Jets and Giants were like teams with some promise where they wanted like Rodgers to like, okay, like you're gonna like raise the boat here. Whereas like with the Steelers, he's almost like just a finishing piece. It's like okay, we struck out on Kenny Pickett, but like the rest of the roster is in really good shape, and it's got a bunch of guys who are really accomplished and have been in the playoffs, and it just makes all the sense of the world, like for him to wind up there.
Baltimore Ravens are our last team in the division. They do not need a quarterback, which is good. I think that's something that they don't have to be in the conversation. One more point in the Steelers, I will just say too. Maybe you want to get an RB2 there after losing Najee Harris, and maybe kind of help them out a little bit.
If you draft Rodgers, I mean, do you take Omari and Hampton? You know what I mean? Like that. Maybe that's on the table for them.
Hey, all right, I like that. But if you
Or
let's
are
just
you stung? Or are you stung from the Najee Harris experience where you don't? I don't know. Like that's a question.
before we go, because this is an interesting thought. Let's say Rogers signs tomorrow,
Yeah,
whatever. Probably will, like when I'm eating dinner or at t-ball practice or whatever, And not for me.
I was at youth lacrosse when he was traded the last time, so that was fun.
To be clear, my kids are in t-ball. I'm not. I don't play t-ball anymore.
Yeah,
But let's say Rogers signs, and then all of a sudden there's a Shador free fall, and you're at 20, and you have Aaron Rodgers, and you need to win right now, but you know that you're never going to get probably back down this low for a quarterback again, at least in the near term. Do you take Shador Sanders at 20?
it just depends on your evaluation of him. You know what I
Let's
mean?
say you like him.
And I don't know. Like I look at Shador and Jackson Dart. Like this is just my opinion on it. Um, like would they be gun shy about it? Because with those guys, it's like one of the biggest question is like the physical ceiling, right? And like it's the same thing as Kenny Pickett. You know,
Right.
like it's like, yeah, like we can get this guy up and running pretty quick or whatever, but like how far can he actually take it? Like is he actually like a guy who we're going to be able to go and battle with Allen and Mahomes and Lamar and Burrow in the AFC for the next 10 years? I think that's a harder thing to wrap your head around. And the Steelers have already been through it with Pickett, who wasn't like objectively horrible, like just wasn't good enough, as
Right.
they saw it. So I don't know. Like I'd be surprised if that was a quarterback there, but they're having Shador, and I think it's today. We'll see what happens.
Baltimore Ravens, a lot of places they could go here. Classic Ravens would say that at some point they're going to scoop up a great offensive lineman, and then they're going to add to their secondary, and then they're going to add a great edge rusher somewhere in this draft, and then they're just going to continue
And then
being
that
the
guy won't
Baltimore
play
Ravens.
for a year or two, but then when he does, he's going to be awesome.
Exactly. It's weird because there's some times where when you do a mock draft, and I just looked at the MMQB calendar, and ours are due in like 2 weeks, by the way, so we need to start working on those. But when you do one of these, you often feel like you're kind of lost in the woods. But with Baltimore, you feel like you're always at least marginally close. You're like, okay, like this guy seems like a Ravens player, or you just look at him and you're like, yeah, there's no way that guy's a Ravens player. It's a yes or a no thing, which is a credit to them. They have an established identity to the point where, I don't know, maybe mock drafters enjoy a higher degree of success when they're picking for the Ravens.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's. I'm just like looking at their depth chart now. There are some key spots where they could get younger. You mentioned edge. I think that's definitely one of them. If there was a left tackle they could see as the eventual replacement for Ronnie Stanley, they got to think about it. But that's the beauty of this for them is like really right now they're drafting for 2026, aren't they? Like that's the idea anyway, and that's where you want to be. Is like
Right.
drafting for the year after. I find it interesting too. I just like looked at their list of draft picks. They have 8 picks on day 3.
Of course they do.
So yeah, because they play the comp pick formula like someone at Merrill Lynch plays the stock market. So they're gonna. I mean, they've got an opportunity to kind of get some depth on their roster this year. And I look at I look at like some of the edge players and some of the Big Ten edge players that obviously John's going to be familiar with through his brother. The 2 guys at Ohio State, JT Tuimoloau, Jack Sawyer, and then Josiah Stewart from Michigan. Like I could see them maybe in day 2 going and getting a guy like getting one of those types of guys. And then if you're talking about like just how do we work a year ahead? Maybe you look at running back for them, and putting somebody behind Derrick Henry is a great year to draft a running back. But really, their rosters they're just solid all over the place. Like remember last year, like they let go 60% of their offensive line from the AFC Championship game.
Yeah.
They're just fine. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, so they've done such a good job of developing guys in the shadows. That's why I'm saying like they're going to wind up with 3 or 4 players here, I'm sure, who are going to wind up maybe disappearing for a year or two and then reemerging as really good players in 26 or 27.
Some teams, we're going to flip over to the AFC, but or AFC East, but I'll make one more quick point on the Ravens. And people don't really understand. We can say comp pick, comp pick, comp pick over and over and over again. What that allows you to do is so much different than what everybody assumes it allows you to do. Like everyone's like, oh, more lottery tickets. Not really. If you have so many picks on day two, you can end up just selecting the best overall players at positions that don't normally get drafted that high, but then end up factoring in a major way because you just have so many picks. And so, for example, a couple of years ago, you need a punter, but you have 5 fourth-round draft picks. Okay, I'm just going to take the best punter, and who gives a shit because I have 3 other fourth-round picks, or the best, whatever it is, a position off-ball linebacker, right? Maybe it's not a great off-ball linebacker class, but I'm going to take the best one because I have 4 of these picks, and it doesn't
your
matter.
flexibility is ridiculous.
Yeah, flexibility, yeah. And I think that's something. It's interesting too that Dallas is a team that's loading up on a lot of comp picks this year, and it looks like trying to play the formula for next year too. Are they trying to get in on it?